Hi folks, Dave with DBS Tech Talk, and today we're going to do a review of the ZMF Classics, which are right here beside me. Now this is going to be a first for me in that I've never experienced a Fostex. I've never experienced a ZMF headphone. I have never experienced a planar closed headphone. And I've never had a full modded headphone. The only modded headphone that I've really experienced, besides, like changing pads or something like that, would be my monoprice M1060s that I had back in the day. And I didn't have somebody else do those modifications. It was just, small stuff that I did on my own. So this is a first fully modified headphone. The only other closed headphones that I've experienced also are not really in the same class at all. Price-wise, maybe, and that would be the Barodynamic Custom Studio. And I'll do a review between these and the Classics, but that's coming at a later time. Man alive, cat hair. Whew. Anyways, so I've had the Barodynamic Custom Studios, and I've had those for quite a while. And then also the Marantz Pros, the little itty bitty ones that, yeah. I mean, I'll do a review, but I'll probably toss it in along with the Barodynamic and do a three-way between the two. Between the two. Can't do a three-way between two. Okay, I'll do a three-way comparison between these three closed headphones. There we go. Split them up. But both of those are dynamics. So I have not had a planar closed. I wanted to try it, and to be honest, I'm an open headphone type of guy, and always kind of, ever since I experienced an open headphone, I have leaned that way. And so, semi-open or open. I've never gone really back to closed. I use closed occasionally, but not near as much. I mean, I'm not reaching for my Barodynamics or the Marantz Pros near as often as I probably should, or as often as I am for everything else that's over here beside me or up there. So, all thoughts and comparisons made in this video are my own. They are tested with my own ears. No one else has influenced me in any way, has asked me to say anything about these, has not given any input as far as the thoughts on this review. Everything is my own and my own words. Let's get it started. The ZMF Classics. Now, you can go onto the ZMF website, and it's very easily laid out as to how to modify your headphones. You will notice I do have a pilot pad on here. The pilot pad, when I first got these, was not on them. I did order that afterwards. And the reason for that, and I haven't taken it off for the review, is because these things are uncomfortable without the pilot pad. There's a really thick and stiff leather strap underneath that the pilot pad currently is on that just presses on the top of your head, and it hurts. It's not comfy at all. I tried to bend it, flex it, and loosen it up, and it just won't loosen. Some people say you can remove it, but Zach Merbach must be an extremely strong person, or he uses some sort of machine to put the screws on, or I'm just wimpy. I couldn't turn the screws to get that thing off. I felt like I was going to break the headphone if I was to take that strap off. So I just left the strap on. When I initially got the pilot pad, I put it on top here, and it helped a little bit, but it was pressing that leather strap too far down, and so it was actually still giving me the pressure on top of my head. And then I took it and I was like, there's got to be something. I mean, I tried to take that leather strap off. Obviously, it wouldn't come off. And so I was like, why not? Let's try it the other way. And so I put it on that leather strap. It fits very well, still gives room for the band. It's not pressing the band up or moving it in any way, causing it that it's going to break. It sits right there, and it adds so much more comfort. It's so much better. Now, when I put them on, I don't have that pressure spot, and it's just comfy. Now, the other thing probably that you notice as soon as I put them on are these things are massive. I mean, they don't, when you put them on, people know you have headphones on. I mean, you're going to notice the headband up top. You're going to notice how wide they stand out. You're going to notice the rods. I mean, these are not subtle looking headphones. Okay, they're huge. They are, the other aspect of the comfort part are the pads. And these pads are amazing. Super, super thick. I mean, look how thick that part is that goes behind your ear. And then even on the front part, they have a good lip on there. I mean, they are deep. I put my finger in there, and it's more than a knuckle on the back part, and it's a knuckle on the front. I mean, my fingers aren't huge, but they got, decent length. I mean, so that's a big difference. And then there are 4 knuckles to get my hand in there. So, I mean, they're huge. The pads are, and they are so soft. You just press on them, and yeah, I like these pads a lot. And when you put them on, they just fit your ears and around your ear, I should say. I don't have anything touching my ears. And it's just comfy, 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 comfy. So comfort, once you get the Pilot Pad on there, get the ZMF Pilot Pad. If you're ordering directly through ZMF, make sure you ask for the Pilot Pad. And I think that they will install it directly for you. But I didn't ask for it, so I had to order it separately. And for $30, it's well worth it. Also, it fits other headphones. Grotto, it works on Grottos. So if you have Grottos that are uncomfortable, go ahead and slap one of those on there. Helps tremendously. Anyways, back to the build. The build quality is standard Fostex from what I understand, and from what you can see through pictures. It's got the typical 2-rod sliders, and the sliders work very well. They don't slide up and down horribly with time. I do notice that every now and then after long listening sessions, they will tend to kind of creep up your head just a little bit, but that has gotten better now that I have Pilot Pad on. The overall build quality is good. Clamp force was a slight problem. I did have a little bit of a problem with it sliding a little bit, so I have bent the headband just a little bit in, and it's helped tremendously to fit my head. Plus that, again, the Pilot Pad helped with that. So there is a video, several videos online that you can watch if you want to make sure that you're tweaking the headband properly. So you could just do some simple researching on that. The coverings that he has here with the carbon fiber looks nice. I mean, there's not any real branding on anything. I mean, they just look like plain Fostex. And if you take the Pilot Pad off of here on the leather strap, it does say ZMF on it, which is nice. I did get the balanced version, so he modded that, and he put the balanced 4 pins in, and so you don't have that orange wire coming up through like you do on the single-ended version. The nice thing about that is the ports are angled just a little bit forward, so when you have it on your head, the cables aren't dragging on your shoulders and stuff. It does kind of go forward. Speaking of cables, the stock cable that came with it, I didn't go for any of the upgraded cables. I just went for the stock cable, and it's decent cable. It is a 4-pin XLR, which looks like a Nutric, but it doesn't have any branding on it, so I'm not 100% sure on that. And then it's got a unique flat cable, which is nice because it doesn't twist up and all of that. It is a little awkward every now and then on the way it sits on tables and everything, but for the most part, it's not bad. I don't have any complaints about it. It's nice and light. And then it has a nice split that has just a little bit of heat shrink right there. And then you just have the splits. And the LNR is just, excuse me. The LNR is just written right here on, I don't know if you can see it. You can barely see it on camera in the proper light. There we go. Slightly right there underneath the pins. The only complaint I have, and it's that the button to press it to release is a little small. And so when you're trying to put it into the, well, first, when you're inputting them, there is a little bit of a groove on the cable. So you just match it up accordingly and it goes in just like so, very easily. And so, as you can see, there's the angle on them does come forward just a little bit, which is nice. But when you go to remove it, if you have fat fingers like I do, pressing that button can be just a little hard because this part, it bangs up against the plastic. So it would have been nice if the cable button could be on the outside instead of on the inside. I know it's trying to hide it so it doesn't look as, so it's prettier looking. I understand that, but it's just a little hard to get in. Just a minor gripe. Or if you want to get a different cable, which going for balance, this works great. So I wanted a single-ended cable also because not all of my amps have XLR outs. And so I went to Forza Autoworks. I wanted to give them a shot, and they made a very nice cable for me. And this is just the basic cable that he has. I can't remember the name of it. It's not one of his base upgraded versions or anything of that sort. But Matt did a very nice job on this cable. It's got a nice fabric on it. And a very nice split which has a heat shrink with his logo, and then it goes up. And the difference between this is on his cables, along with his little logos, the connector, disconnector button, in my opinion, is a little bit easier to push. For one, it's a little bit bigger, and when you connect it, when it's sitting there in there, when you go to grab it, it sits a little bit farther down, and it's just easier for my fingers to push. If you have skinny fingers, probably wouldn't be a big deal, but for my fat fingers, it's a little bit harder. And I just find it a little easier to connect. So if you're looking for an alternate cable, and Matt can do it in all kinds of ways, balanced, single-ended. I got a 3.5 with a 90-degree angle. Works just fine. And whichever way you want to do it, Forza Autoworks makes a good cable. Highly recommend. But the stock cable is not bad either. Or you can get one of ZMF's upgraded cables. So overall, comfort-wise, 100 times better with Pilot Pad on. Pads don't have an issue with. It is a little heavy. It's not the lightest headphone in the world, but it's not freakishly heavy. And when it sits on your head, you really don't notice the weight as much. It disperses it very well. So no complaints with Pilot Pad. How do they sound? They are a very unique sounding closed headphone. Now again, I didn't really have experience with a planar closed before. I have experience with planar headphones, just not a closed. And then the closed that I have, both of them are very much studio and a very neutral almost and brighter sound. So I never had a closed that sounded this good. I absolutely love them. Can't take them off my head. Incredible sound. Zach did a fantastic job, and it was well worth the long wait. And you can definitely tell he puts a lot of love into his products, and greatly appreciate the sound of these now that they've been with me for almost a month. Do bear in mind they do take a little bit of power. They don't take the nuclear reactors like everybody says they do to power them, but you do want a decent amp to push them. Also, they do take a little bit of time to settle in a little bit and to adjust. It takes a little bit for the treble to kind of mellow out just a little bit and for the bass to smooth in. It's not any hundreds of hours or anything like that, but a couple of days worth of consistent running and they will sound good. Bass wise, they are very plentiful when it comes to bass. It is not the deepest, most rumbly set of cans that I have heard, but it is not a lean sounding bass. And it is very clean and clear, has a nice impact and a full bodiness to it. You get plenty of details out of the bass for these. It is by far the most bassy headphone that I own. But when I say that, it doesn't mean it's muddy or dark in any way. It just means that it has more thump and kick to it than anything else. I really like the bass on this. Very, very well extended. And you can get your head rocking with these, and you can get a very pleasurable sound. Now, I wouldn't say it's bass head worthy, but it is definitely more than enough for the majority of listeners. Mids are forward and intimate. It's not a even balance between the bass and the mid. The mids are forward above the bass, which is gives a very nice presentation to it, has very natural timbre to it, and they are very accurate. I would say that this is probably the tightest sounding mids of any headphone and that I have heard, and super clean, and everything just sounds like it should in the real world. They present mids and vocals very well. And one thing that a lot of headphones struggle with is female vocal, and these do a really good job of presenting females. They do not become shrill or sharp or hazy in any way. Does a really nice job on females and males alike, but females, it actually is very superb. And then on the treble extends really well. Is about on even balance with the mids, and has a nice aggressiveness to it, has a nice tone to it, but at the same time can every now and then, depending on what song is being, if it has a lot of treble in it or is a sharper song to begin with, a brighter sound, these can be a little too much. It's not every song, and it's not noticeable all the time, but every now and then you'll come across that song in your playlist and you're like, ooh, ooh, ee. And you either have to tweak the volume or just skip the song. And but it's very few and far between. I do not find the treble to be annoying in any way. It just has that every now and then one moment. Overall, though, it's a fairly balanced sound. The bass is just a little bit lower than the mids and the treble, but for the most part, it's pretty straight balanced across. It is not a bright sound and it is not a dark sound. I would say it's right in the middle as far as overall tone. I do have darker sounding headphones than this, and I do have brighter sounding headphones than this. So I actually really like the tone of these a whole lot. Soundstage is a little lacking, but of course we are talking about a closed headphone. It is not the widest, but it is wider than closed that I have heard in the past, or that I currently own, for that matter. Imaging is really good. Across the board, you get a lot of good locations and details out of this. That they are detail kings. You're not going to miss any of the details in it or anything of that sort. But on imaging, you do have some spots, it seems like, that get missed a little bit every now and then. It's more right, center, left, or left, center, right. You don't get the left center, right center type of thing. It's more like either it's out here, here, or here. But you can still tell where it's at on the stage. They are an intimate sound. It is closed and closer to your head, but it just gives a romantic, more natural sound to the headphones. Power-wise, they can be run both single-ended and balanced, and that is if you get the balanced configuration, of course. The different amps that I have, we'll start with single-ended versions. The Audio GD NFB 12.1, very nicely done. Clean, clear, and lots of details. Has plenty of power, pushes these with ease. You're not going to struggle with that amplifier. The APPJ PA 1502A tube amp powers them very well, adds just a little bit to the bass, gives a little bit more thump to it, and also adds a little bit more body to the sound, it sounds like. You get just a little bit more, and it does take off a little bit on the treble, and so at times you can lose a little bit of dynamics and a little bit of that sharp crispiness on the treble. Moving over to the Cavelli Tube Hybrid CTH, powers it well depending on which DAC you're using. If your DAC has low output impedance, the Cavelli will struggle. You'll have to really turn the volume up, and you lose out on some of the dynamics and just that overall girth of the sound that these can give. And so I'm using the Audio GD as my source with the Cavelli, and that has plenty of output power available, and the CTH doesn't struggle at all, has a very nice sound. Unlike the APPJ, the bass still has a really nice tone to it, and the mids are very smooth. It doesn't remove as much from the treble as the APPJ does. The CTH has a little bit more crispness, a little bit more airiness, a little bit more treble qualities than that. Moving over to the Aune stack that I have, the X1S does power the T50s, but you're pretty much at 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon on the dial on single-ended, and it sounds all right. It's just not as clean and clear as the T50s or the Classic can get. So not really my recommendation to X1S. Go to the X7S with the X1S as the DAC. The X7S powers it very well on single-ended. You get about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you have plenty of power, and it's getting to the point of being way too loud. So the X7S has good juice, so to speak. For the ZMF Classics, it does power it very well. Sounds good. Sounds a lot better than the X1S. You have nice bass, good mids and treble. But when you change it out and you go to the balanced out, all of a sudden you notice a big difference. The improvement in power is very noticeable. The bass increases, the mids become more natural sounding and smooth, and the treble gets a little bit more just crispness, but it doesn't get harsh. So the X7S on balanced with these is excellent. I recommend that you use the ZMF Classics balanced. Works well on single-ended, depending on what amp you use. Audio GD, very good. And then the other ones are kind of hit or miss. ZMF Classic and AU and X7S balanced. Great synergy, great sound, very cohesive, very tight sound. Love it. Going over to the Korg DSD DAC 100, that powers it very well on single-ended. Works well. I actually was surprised that it powered it as well, but you do miss out a little bit on dynamics on it. You don't get quite as much of a full sound, but it does work well, and it will power it. You get to about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the dial, and the Korg works very well. The Geshelli Labs Arco Pro. Now this is interesting because I had the Enog 2 DAC paired with it, and the ZMF Classic sounded great. Of course, you had to change the gain output from the DAC going in, and it sounded good. I think I had to have it on the second setting of gain from the Enog going into the Arco Pro. And you could power it, no distortion. It sounded very clean, very smooth, had really nice dynamics and good sounding bass and mids. But when I had to send the Enog 2 Pro or Enog 2 back to its owner, and I plugged my SMSL Sanskrit into the Geshelli, all of a sudden the Arco Pro started to distort at like 10 o'clock, and it doesn't sound near as good. So the Arco Pro works with the ZMFs, just you have to have the stack, in my opinion. Now, if you do the 3.5 millimeter input into the Geshelli, you can control the volume a little bit with your source, and it doesn't distort as bad, but you do lose out on some of the dynamics and things, it sounds like. So the Geshelli's, it depends on if you have the full stack or not, that I can recommend it. So the ZMF Classics are amp dependent. Depends on what you have. But I do highly recommend them. And no, you don't need some insane amplifier to power these. You just need the proper setup. That's just my humble opinion. I don't have any, anything other than my ears to prove it. And when you get them and you try them out, ultimately it's going to be your ears that have to decide if you approve or disapprove. So, the ZMF Classics. First experience with ZMF, first experience with Fostex, first experience with a planar closed headphone. First experience with a T50rp MkIII mod, first experience with a fully modded headphone. Thumbs up from me. crazy good build, crazy good sound. Just make sure that you have the proper amping going on with them. And I highly recommend for less than $350. Actually, check that with the pilot pad purchase being rated about $350. These are a great purchase. Highly recommend it. I think it meets the value. And Mr. Zach Murbach, ZMF, I really like these classics. Did a good job, and I know that it took a long time to get them, but the wait was well worth it. This has been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.